Today's video, I want to cover some very important information about The Division 2, especially if you're buying a physical copy of this game, looking to bypass the game's gigantic download on the PlayStation 4. Even if you are getting a physical copy, be prepared for an absolutely enormous download. This doesn't make a lot of sense, but we'll talk about that. Also, a PlayStation 4 game has been delayed, but it's not being delayed because the game is unfinished or there's some big problem with it. No, they've actually got a great reason for delaying the Sinking City, and I want to go over that. And also, we've been talking a lot about Days Gone. Coming from Sony Ben Studio, well, Ben Studio tweeted out the other day that the game has officially gone gold, so the base game is completed, and I do want to talk a little bit about that at the end of this video. First, let's talk about this crazy information about The Division 2. Now, when you traditionally buy a PlayStation 4 game physically, you just pop in the disc to your PS4, and you might have to download an update here and there, and you do have to install the game, but it's relatively quick. If you're expecting that same kind of experience out of Tom Clancy's The Division 2, you are going to be grotesquely disappointed, and that is because Ubisoft has noted that those who purchase the game physically will be prompted to download an absolutely massive day one update. How big is this day one update? Maybe you're thinking it's 5 gigabytes. That would be pretty big. 6 gigabytes, 10 gigabytes at the most. No, it will be a whopping 90 gigabytes. Yes, you will have to download 90 gigabytes worth of content to access the game, and after the day one update downloads, then you can play the game. Now, the 90 gigabytes won't be tacked on top of whatever is on disk. It looks like they have to replace a lot of the data, and the final file size will come in at around 88 to 92 gigabytes. That's how much the download will be as well. So that's pretty absurd. I've seen this in cases before with a game like Call of Duty Black Ops 4 where you did have to download a sizable amount of content. However, it was never to the point where it's a 90 gigabyte download. There have been other games that had massive installs, like a Red Dead Redemption 2. Hell, that game came out on 2 discs, and I believe that's the only PlayStation 4 game this generation that released on 2 discs, one of them being just an install disc. But in the case of The Division 2, it's not a direct install. That means you will have to download the entirety of that 90 gigabytes, and if you don't have the best internet speed in the world, well, that's going to be a very long download. Say you get it midday on Friday when it is released for everyone buying the base edition. I do believe if you're buying the gold edition, you get access to the game 3 days earlier, which is another rabbit hole I can go down, and we can complain about that for a long time, but let's not get into that. Let's say you're getting the base game mid-Friday. You want to get started playing that game and you want to enjoy it all weekend. Well, you're probably not going to be able to do so if you have mid-tier internet, because a 90 gigabyte download is going to take quite a while. This is pretty unfortunate. And because the game does come out on a Friday, that kind of does stifle your weekend a little bit if you're working Monday through Friday. You get home with The Division 2, and what you experience is a long freaking download. Not a big fan of that. Wish it would have been a reasonable download, like 10 to 15 gigabytes at most, and then the install file size would take care of the rest. It doesn't look like this is the same case for the Xbox One nor the PC version of the game either. Of course, with PC, you're buying the game digitally anyway, so that's not a big deal. And if you're buying the game digitally on the PlayStation 4, you will circumvent the issue because you can just preload the game and you should be good to go by the time it's released. But I know a lot of you guys do like to pick up your games physically, and in the case of The Division 2, it is an unfortunate circumstance with how this game is turning out from that end. However, it does seem like there's a reasonable amount of anticipation heading into the release of The Division 2, and I think a big reason this game is going to be benefited is because Anthem has been a gigantic train wreck. If people are already looking to move on from that game and get into another multiplayer offering, The Division 2 is probably going to be the game they're looking at in terms of recent releases. If Anthem did turn out to be this stellar success, I think gamers would have been invested into the Anthem experience. Unfortunately, for EA, that has not been the case, but The Division 2 is probably going to reap a little bit of dividends off of that. However, next week, come Friday, you will have to experience a massive download for the game. 90 gigabytes is just so extreme, and I don't even know how many people can download that in a single day, even for somebody like me that has pretty good internet, that does use an Ethernet connection. A 90 gigabyte download is absolutely massive. Now, it remains to be seen if you can download just a portion of it and the game will be ready to go. Hopefully, that is the case so you can at least start playing the game, but if you want entire access to the game, again, a 90 gigabyte download, which is just absurd. Alright, so enough on that. Let's talk The Sinking City. The game was scheduled to be released on March 21st. However, now it has been delayed until June 27th. Now, why is this delay happening? Is it because the game needs more polish? Is it because there's some issue with the release? No, it's actually for probably the best reason possible. They put out a video saying The Sinking City new release date, and they were just very honest about the situation, saying that there are so many games coming out around this time that we're gonna push our game back until June 21st, where it's much more quiet in terms of big game release. Now, late June is actually getting a little heavier now. I believe June 25th will bring Judgment, so that's another major game. However, if you compare June's game offerings to, say, March's, when this game was originally scheduled to be released, it's just not a busy time in comparison. This month brought with it Left Alive, even though that game was pretty terrible. Of course, we have The Division 2, we had Devil May Cry 5, we have Sekiro Shadows Die Twice, and that's just to name a few of the games. The Sinking City was definitely going to get lost in the shuffle there. I think June is going to be a much better time, especially coming off E3, where there's just heightened emotions when it comes to gaming. I think that's a way better time to release the game, and I do believe that games should be released over the summertime. Usually the summer is the most dead period of game releases of the year. I don't know why that is, because of course, for a lot of school students, they're off during the entirety of summer, whether you're in high school, whether you're in college, and if you want to get new games to get into, summer would be a great time to release your game, especially because not only are people off from school, but generally speaking, there are just not a lot of big games coming out, so that July and early August period, I think more games should be released around that time. That's been a point that I've brought up so many times just because it's so empty those months, and we're really just left to playing games that came out earlier in the year. But nonetheless, I think this is a great decision from the Sinking City, especially because this game just generally doesn't have a lot of anticipation. I think the people that have watched gameplay of the title have a reasonable amount of anticipation for it. But again, given all the major games coming out, if you're talking to somebody and they're just planning to pick up a couple games this month, you look at games like Devil May Cry 5, The Division 2 if you want a multiplayer game, and Sekiro Shadows Die Twice. I mean, let's be real, does the Sinking City really have any chance to compete with those games? Probably not, and how I compare this game is to a game like Vampire, and I do believe Vampire was released in the month of June, and that game resonated pretty well last year, and I harken back to Vampire's release where it was a little bit of a dead time during gaming, and was that game a slam dunk home run success in terms of a critical reception? No, but commercially it actually did very, very well. I believe the Sinking City can pan out like that, and late June is an even more dead time than the early June period that Vampire was released in, so I think this is a good decision just across the board. And lastly, Ben Studio announced that Days Gone has officially gone gold over on Twitter. They specifically said, quote, "Our team has done it. Days Gone has gone gold. It's been quite the ride, and we can't wait for you to experience our game on April 26th. Now, if you don't know what a game going gold means, now the game will start being printed onto disc, the packaging will occur, and everything that's being shipped on disc is completely done. That doesn't mean work on the game is done. The developers are still going to be working on the game, whether it be updates, whether it be DLC content if that's planned in the future, that will continue to be worked on. But as we've noticed, there's a lot of Days Gone previews going out right now, and the game now going gold, that probably correlates with the fact of preview builds being sent out, and now the game is at a very functional and palatable state. You see the footage now and compare it back to what we saw a couple of years ago, it's day and night, no pun intended, but Days Gone from a technical standpoint is looking much better. From a visual standpoint, it always looked rather good. The performance was just a little bit shoddy. Now the gameplay we're seeing, the performance looks much, much smoother, and it should only get smoother as they roll out updates and things of that nature. A photo mode might be in the works, as most PS4 exclusives do include a photo mode at some point, and I feel like a game like Days Gone, a photo mode would really accentuate the beautiful environments that the game has. But nonetheless, it's pretty cool to see that Sony Ben Studio will finally be putting out their first major title on the PlayStation 4. I've been saying that I think this game is going to surprise a lot of people, and when I talk about PS4 exclusives, now I have the tendency to break them down into tier 1 and tier 2 exclusives. I feel like Days Gone is one of those games that, depending on its general critical reception, it could definitely break into that tier 1 category alongside games like Marvel's Spider-Man, God of War, and become a commercial success, much like Horizon Zero Dawn did even as a new IP. Now, Horizon Zero Dawn had the benefit of just being such a zany idea, and it coming from Guerrilla Games, who is a much more notable studio than Ben Studio, so I don't know if it's gonna sell the, say, 10 million copies that Horizon Zero Dawn did in 2 years, but I do think Days Gone can do really, really well commercially as long as it delivers from a critical standpoint. I feel like with a game like this, because it's a new IP, because it's coming from Ben Studio, there's a general amount of anticipation for it, but people aren't completely sold yet. As long as the reviewers and the general reception is positive, I think a lot of people will check it out heading into the summertime. And that's going to conclude this video. Again, if you're picking up a physical copy of The Division 2, it is going to require an enormous 90GB download. The Sinking City has now been delayed until June because too many games are coming out. It'll be coming out June 27th, and I think that's a great reason to delay a game. And again, Sony Ben Studios' first PlayStation 4 game in Days Gone is almost here. It'll be coming April 26th, and now it has officially gone gold. That's going to conclude this video. Sound off with all of your thoughts in the comments section down below. Thank you for watching, and goodbye. Hey guys, we hope you enjoyed the video, and if you did, make sure to hit the subscribe button, and if you're already subscribed, do us a favor and hit the bell icon. This way you'll be notified whenever we post a new video. That's the best way to keep up with all of our uploads, and we usually try to upload 2 videos a day. And with the bell icon hit, you'll be notified whenever we do upload a video. As always, thanks for watching.